I realize that I've just been going through a lot lately, and one of the things that I've come to realize is that even in the way that I make YouTube videos sometimes I come off a little harsh and definitely off the cuff because I feel like I have to fight my own battles, or what I consider my own battles, and a lot of times I feel like I have to fight my own battles, or what I consider my own battles, because I feel like I have to rely on my own strength, and I realize that I'm not relying on the strength of God. And one of the things that I've really been convicted of is, it's, for lack of a better term, a classic verse, but the verse is Proverbs 3:5-6, and it's obviously one of the most recited verses for a reason. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths." An alternative translation of the last part of Proverbs 3:6 is, "And He shall make smooth your paths." And as I said, part of the issue with me is that I've relied on myself too much to fight my own battles instead of relying on God to fight my battles for me, and so that's why I come off the cuff, or definitely too harsh. And to make a long story short, I've gone through something that has made me really realize that instead of fighting my own battles, I gotta let God fight my battles for me. And I think that part of the problem with our society today is that we do try to fight our own battles instead of letting God fight them. I'm reminded of where in Tanakh, Elisha had his eyes opened and he saw all the angels, and I'm actually looking that up right now, and I'm going to read from that passage, and it says, "Therefore he sent horses and chariots and a great army there, and they came by night and surrounded the city. And when the servant of the man of God arose early and went out, there was an army surrounding the city with horses and chariots. And his servant said to him, 'Alas, my master, what shall we do?' So he answered, 'Do not fear, for those who are with us are more than those who are with them.' And Elisha prayed and said, 'Lord, I pray.'" Actually, it was Elisha who had taken over for Eliyahu at the time, and Elisha prayed and said, "Lord, I pray, open his eyes that he may see." Then the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw, and behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. So when the Syrians came down to him, Elisha prayed to the Lord and said, "Strike this people, I pray, with blindness." And he struck them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. Now Elisha said to them, "This is not the way, nor is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom you seek." But he led them to Samaria. So it was, when he had come to Samaria, that Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see." And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw. And there they were, inside Samaria. Now when the king of Israel saw them, he said to Elisha, "My father, shall I kill them? Shall I kill them?" But he answered, "You shall not kill them. Would you kill those whom you have taken captive with your sword and your bow? Set food and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master." Then he prepared a great feast for them, and after they ate and drank, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Syrian raiders came no more into the land of Israel. And I could be wrong, I should probably pick up on the whole context. It talks about the Syrians. Oh, it says, "Now the king of Syria was making war against Israel." And if you read on, he was trying to fight Israel, and Anyway, so it talks about where Elisha said, let's give them food and water and just basically let them go, and they didn't come into this soil anymore. And that reminds me of, if your enemy is hungry, give him something to eat. If he's thirsty, give him something to drink. In this way, you'll heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. And as I said, I've had to learn that I need to rely on God's strength and not my own strength, and that even the weakness of God is stronger than the strength of men. And what I mean by that is, in Scripture, it talks about the quote-unquote foolishness of God. Oh, wow. Okay, it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 25, because the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. So that's actually right in Scripture. Either I didn't know that, or I completely forgot that the exact wording, the weakness of God is stronger than men. So I've had to learn that definitely coming off of the cuff and relying on my own strength is not going to help me. And part of why I would rely on my own strength and feel like I had to fight my own battles is because when I was in the situation that I was in, and I've mentioned this before, I was verbally and otherwise abused by my dad. And by the way, I want to clarify that I was never sexually abused, thank God, but I was abused verbally and physically and in other ways. And I felt like I was never believed on a lot of things, and it took until November 2006 for people to see that I was being abused by my dad. And unfortunately, the pattern was I never felt like I was believed, so I always had to fight my own battles, and sometimes I had to fight my own battles to the point where fighting my own battles became detrimental for me. And so now I had to learn that all I got to do is do what I can, and then, just like God, fight the battle from there. And I can go on and on and on, but one verse that I'm reminded of, or one passage that I'm reminded of, is 1 Corinthians 3, 5-8. And it says, who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers through whom you believed, as the Lord gave to each one? I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase, so that neither he who plants is anything, nor he who waters, but God who gives the increase. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, and each one will receive his own reward according to his labor. And as I said, I've had to learn that, for lack of a better term, I gotta let God fight my battles, or what I consider my battles. And as I said, I've really been going through a lot lately, and I'm not going to get into specifics, but I recently went through one situation in my family where I have had to really learn to let God fight my battles for me. And even if I don't like the outcome, even if the outcome of God fighting my battles for me is not what I consider good, God is going to work everything to the good. And too often in our culture, we confuse what we don't like for what is good. Or excuse me, we confuse what we like for what is good, and we confuse what we don't like for what is not good. Because in any case, God is going to work things to the good. And even if we don't like what happens, for whatever reason, God works all things to the good. Even, for example, with the whole Russian and Ukrainian situation, perhaps if we started, for example, praying about the Ukrainian and Russian situation instead of getting into, for example, even attacking Obama on this, maybe we would get somewhere. And instead of, I could read you, for example, some of the nasty comments off of Geraldo Rivera's page, and it'll just show you, I think, how we're not trusting God to fight the battles here. And Okay, let's talk about another situation. Oh, for example, let's see. So it's talking about he was talking about when Senator Lindsey Graham blamed Russia for Obama's reaction to Benghazi, and someone made a comment like this. Oh boy, this is nasty. Um, Here's one nasty comment. Keep your towel on, Geraldo. He was saying Obama's public weakness with such issues as Benghazi, as well as ignoring issues because they are quote-unquote inconvenient for his reputation, are part of why we are in this situation. Oh yeah, we no longer have allies to speak of. Well, instead of getting nasty with Geraldo like that, if this person, well, since this person didn't agree with Geraldo, couldn't he have just prayed for him, and couldn't he have just said, Lord, open Geraldo's eyes on this? Although, in this case, I do agree with Geraldo. I really don't think that the Benghazi situation and the Ukrainian and Russian situation have to do with each other in the way that Senator Graham thinks that they have to do with each other. And here's another nasty comment from the other side. Imagine that. The anti-Tea Party Graham is a moron. Shocking. Well, instead of calling Senator Graham a moron, why not just pray for him, and why not just say, listen, I wish that Senator Graham could just sit down and talk to those who have lived under Soviet and even Russian imperial oppression, or at least sit down with the relatives of those who experienced Soviet and Russian imperial oppression. And as I said before, I think part of the problem in this culture today is that we feel like we have to fight our own battles, and we don't trust God to fight our battles for us. And like I said, going through the family situation that I've had to go through in the past couple of days, I've learned that I've had to rely on God and not myself to fight my battles for me.